Welcome to Drive the Daf. Clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Shabbos Daf Kuf Tes Zayin discusses primarily what Sifrei Kodesh or other holy things you're allowed to save from a fire and what you should not save and what you're actually allowed to destroy. So the Gemara begins by discussing the Parsha of Vayihi ben Soa, which is surrounded by two upside down nuns, and the Gemara gives two reasons for that. The Gemara then asks about margins or clear, unwritten cloth of a Sefer Torah. Are you allowed to save that from a fire? The Gemara is going to be unclear as to what that shaila is exactly, and the Gemara will have 5 attempts to narrow down the question and to possibly resolve it. Then the Gemara will speak about Sifrei Minim, which is Svarim used for Avodah Zarah. The Gemara will speak about Svarim used to compete and contend with Jews. And the Gemara will launch into some agadata on the subject, including a trick that Rabban Gamliel and his sister once played on a philosopher. And the Gemara will discuss Ksuvim. Why do we not read Ksuvim on Shabbos, and what exactly do we not read and when? That's a machlokas between Rav and Shmuel. We'll have 3 different ways of explaining it. Then we'll have a Mishnah. Mishnah will discuss what you're allowed to save along with the Sefer or the Tefillin that you're saving, and then we'll compare that to Carbon Pesach, and we'll figure it out from there. So first of all, the Gemara wants to know, why is it that there are 2 nuns? One before and one after the Parsha of Vayihi ben Soa, and the Gemara has 2 opinions here. The Gemara has Rebbe, who says that the reason is because that entire Parsha of Vayihi ben Soa is its own Sefer. It's a separate chumash. The Gemara says that if you say that there aren't actually 5 chumashim, there are actually 7 chumashim, because Bamidbar is divided into 3 for a total of 7 chumashim. And the Gemara says this is actually pshat in the pasuk in Mishlei Chachmas Ban Sabeisa Chatzva Amudeha Shiva. Amudeha Shiva means that there are 7 pillars of Torah. The Gemara quotes Rav Shmuel Bar Nachman, in the name of Rav Yonason, who says that those 7 refer to the 7 books of Torah, which is in accordance with this opinion. Now that's Rebbe. Rav Shimon ben Agabliel, however, says that this is set off because it's written in the wrong place. It should have really been above when we discussed the traveling of the Jews through the Midbar, when we spoke about the flags and how they encamped and in what formation they traveled. That's what belongs. It doesn't belong here in Parshas Bahaloscha, where it appears. And the reason why it's here is in order to separate between 2 tragic discussions, 2 terrible things that the Jews had done. And the Gemara identifies those 2 things as, before this it says that the Jews left Har Sinai, and as that they ran away from Har Sinai. It says Vayisu Mehar Hashem, which we read as Vayisu Saru Me'achar Hashem, they left Hashem behind, and they were involved with the Egel. It's a reference to the Egel. And coming after this is the Masonim, those who complained and said that they wanted meat and other things. So in order to separate between these 2, we take the Parsha of Vayihi ben Soa, we move it out of its proper place and we insert it here. But when Mashiach will come, we won't have to worry about Puranas, we won't have to worry about tragedies and punishments any longer. Then it will be restored to its proper place in Parshas Bamidbar, in the discussion of the Degalim, the encampments of the Jews over there. Okay, end of that discussion. Now the Gemara wants to know what happens about the margins or the blank parts of a Sefer Torah. Can you save those from a fire or not? Now this is going to be a difficult child to pin down. What exactly are we asking, the blank parts of a Sefer? So there's a couple of different levels of Kiddush over here. First of all, a Sefer Torah which is worn out, it's destroyed, it's rotted away, that Kedusha is gone. That is not there at all. If it's the Sefer Torah is whole, but the letters are erased, so then there's 2 levels. There's the place where there was writing, that lost its Kedusha because the writing is missing. On the other hand, the margins, which were always blank, those remain blank, and possibly those don't have Kedusha at all. This will ultimately be what the Gemara's Shaila is about. A higher level than that is the actual Torah itself, where the writing is still there and the margins that are alongside actually existing things. So that's ultimately what the Gemara is trying to get to, but before that, the Gemara has to narrow down what the Shaila is, and the Gemara is going to try to bring 5 proofs to resolve the question, and each one will narrow the question further, and then we'll see what the issue is exactly. So the words of the question again are, what do you do about the blank parts of a Sefer Torah? Are you allowed to save them from fire or not? So the Gemara's first proof is we have a Sefer Torah which wore out. And it says that you're only allowed to save it if it has 85 letters that are still existent and clear. Obviously, then the blank parts are not important enough to be saved. So the Gemara says that's not a proof, because over there it's worn out, and that's the lowest level. The Kedusha has left, and even the Kedusha of the blank parts has left. Okay? The Gemara's next proof is that we have a Sefer Torah which is erased. And again, it says that you can only save it if it has 85 letters that are still there. What about the blank parts where the letters were erased? The Gemara says, well, that's different. That has no Kedusha. That doesn't have the Kedusha that it originally had, because the blank spots were originally supposed to have letters on them. So their Kedusha of letters is gone. Who says that there's any residual Kedusha left behind? So the Gemara says, okay, but what about the margins there? So the Gemara says, you're right. That would be my question, but you don't have a proof from here that you could save that Torah because of the margins, because maybe the case here is that the margins are cut off. The Gemara says, okay, I'll bring you a proof about the status of the margins. And again, these refer to the spaces between the parshios, the top of the cloth, the bottom of the cloth, the beginning of the scroll and the end of the scroll, where there was never anything meant to be written there. And the Gemara has a brayso which says that those areas are metamei as heidaim. If you touch them, they make your hands tamei, like there's a halacha which we saw earlier in the Masechta about the 18 things that were established by Beis Shammai. One of them is that Sifrei Kodesh are metamei the hands in order that one not keep truma there so that they don't get eaten by mice. So the Gemara says the fact that they matame the hands don't prove anything, because that is talking about an existing Sefer Torah where nothing is erased. I was asking about the margins of an erased Sefer Torah. Okay, if the margins are still attached to the Sefer Torah, that's not what I was asking about. The margins of an erased Sefer Torah, do those have kedusha or not? Since the erased part loses its kedusha, but this part didn't have anything erased, so maybe it retains its kedusha. So the Gemara tries one more proof, and the Gemara says we have a brayso that says the margins and Sifrei Minim. Those are Sifrei Kodesh that are written by Jews in Hebrew with the correct spelling and everything, but they're used for Avodah Zarah. So you're not allowed to save either of these from a fire. So the Gemara says, so you see clearly that it says that the margins should not be saved from a fire. So the Gemara says that's talking about the margins of the Sifrei Minim, these Avodah Zarah books. Versus what? How could that be? Why would it need to tell me that you shouldn't save the margins? You can't even save the books themselves. You certainly shouldn't save the margins. So the Gemara says, no, it means to say that the books are like their margins, and neither of them should be saved. Okay, now the Gemara goes deeper into the topic of these books of Apikorsim. So the Gemara says 3 statements about it. First of all, Rabbi Yossi says what you should do with them is you should cut out the Shem Hashem that's in them. You should put those into Geniza, into Shemus, into a place where they'll be rotted slowly on their own and not destroy them with your hands, and the rest of it you should burn in a fire. Rabbi Tarfon says, "Akabachas b'ni, I'll kill my child," a language of swearing. If not, the fact that if these books come to my hands, I will burn them completely and totally the way they are, them with the names inside them, because these are the worst things that there are. If somebody is chasing you to kill you, you're allowed to run away. Or if a snake is after you, you're allowed to run anywhere, into a church, into a house of Avodah Zarah, anywhere, but not into the house of these minim, these Jews who know what they're talking about, and they learned, and they use that to reject HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to serve idols instead. Those are the worst things. And it's about those people that it says that they hide their memories behind the door. They hide what they remember about Hashem behind the door, because they know what it's about, and they go serve Avodah Zarah anyway. Now Rabbi Shmuel says you can actually destroy these with the names inside, and you can prove it from the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed his name to be destroyed, to be erased. In the Parsha of Sota, that was when a scroll was written and erased in water, and a woman who was suspected of unfaithfulness was given that to drink, so that was in order to restore peace between her and her husband. The name of Hashem was erased into that water. So if you can erase Hashem's name in order to restore peace between man and his wife, you can certainly erase these names of Hashem in order to restore peace between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Jewish people. And these books and the people who believe in them cause tremendous rift between us. And it's actually about these people that David HaMelech said in Tehillim, Mesanach Hashem Esna, those who hate you, I will hate. B'skamamecha eskaita, those who rise up against you, I will battle. Tachlis sinas enesim, the essence of hatred, I have hated them. They were my enemies. Lo'evim hayuli. Okay, now it also says that just like you aren't allowed to save these books from a fire, you shouldn't save it from a destroyed house, or from a flood, or from anything which is destroying them. Okay, now the Gemara has a question. Something similar to the Sifrei Minim is Sifrei de Be Avidan. Be Avidan was a place where people would come to debate against the Klal Yisrael. And they took our Svarim, and they had Svarim which they left there. Now the Aruch defines it as libraries. Libraries that belong to the nations where they kept collections of all the books of all the nations that there are out there, and the wise people would get together and have a philosophical discussions about it. But this place is not really Avodah Zarah, it's just not exactly a good use of a sefer. So the Gemara says this question was asked to Rabbi Avo by Rav Yossi Bar Chanin, and he wasn't sure, didn't have an answer. And now the Gemara discusses these Bei Avidan, are you allowed to go there or not? And there was another similar place called Bei Nitzrefei, which were like Bei Avidan. They're also a place for debates or libraries, depending who you go like, but it also had an Avodah Zarah there. So everybody agrees that the Bei Nitzrefei you're not allowed to go to, because that has Avodah Zarah, so nobody went there. But the Bei Avidan, Shmuel went there, but Rav and Rava refused to go there. Rashi explains that they were afraid if they went there to debate, they would win the debate, and then they would be killed in honor of their having won the debate. So the Gemara says that these debaters asked Rava, why don't you go? So he said, well, there's a tree blocking the road. So he says, well, okay, we'll remove the tree. He said, okay, but now there's a hole where the tree was. Now that's blocking the road. He was trying to avoid having to go. Now the Gemara says, Amar Bar Yosef said, I'm friendly with these chevra, I'm not afraid of them, and I'm going to go, and they're not going to hurt me. And he went, and he won the debate, and what do you know? They actually tried to kill him. Okay, now the Gemara has the story of how Rabban Gamliel and his sister, whose name was Ima Shalom, who was actually the wife of Rabbi Eliezer Hagadol, featured in the famous story of Tana de Be'achnai in Parak Hazav in Bava Metzia. So the Gemara here says that Rabban Gamliel and Ima Shalom were brother and sister, and they wanted to expose a certain philosopher who had developed a reputation that he was an honest judge and he didn't take bribes, and he lived in their area, and they wanted to expose him that he really was taking bribes in secret. So what did they do? Rabban Gamliel Ima Shalom came and brought him a bribe. She gave him a golden candelabra. And then they came before him and they said, we have a court case, we want to split our inheritance. And there was a large crowd there, and they wanted to see what he was going to rule. So he said, split it evenly. So they said, what do you mean? The Torah says that where there's a son, the daughter doesn't inherit anything, and we're a brother and a sister. So he said, no, split it evenly anyway, meaning he was trying to rule like Ima Shalom, because he got a bribe from her. He said, split it evenly anyway, because since you were thrown out of Eretz Yisrael, the Torah of Moshe was replaced with some other book, Chas v'Shalom, and in that book it says that the son and the daughter split evenly. Okay, so they left, and Rabbi Gamliel went and brought the man a donkey, a very fancy one, called a luba donkey, and then they reconvened. And this time the guy changed his ruling. He said, you know what, if you go to the end of the book, it says that nothing here overrules anything in Torah's Moshe, and therefore we'll go back to Torah's Moshe's ruling, and the woman doesn't get anything. So she said, what do you mean? Your light of the candle, remember the light of the candle? It's supposed to shine? Right? She was hinting to him what happened to my bribe. And Rabbi Gamliel said, oh, I guess the donkey came and kicked over your candle. Now this was designed to expose him before everyone there that he had taken bribes from each of them. Okay, that ends this discussion. Now the Gemara goes back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah had said that we should not be reading from farm of Ksuvim, Sifrei Ksuvim, on Shabbos. So the Gemara is a machlokes between Rav and Shmuel here. We have three different versions as to what the machlokes is. The first version is that they're arguing as to when the time of this prohibition is. According to Rav, it's only when the drasha in the Beis Medrash is happening and you're supposed to be listening to the drasha. According to Shmuel, you shouldn't be reading Ksuvim anytime at all, at least on Shabbos, even when the drasha is not happening. So Gemara says, is that true? But in Shmuel's town, they read from Ksuvim at Kriyas HaTorah at Mincha time. So obviously Shmuel didn't hold that way. So Gemara has another version of this dispute, that according to Rav, the dispute was, where is the Isser? Only in the place where the Beis Medrash shir is happening, that's where the Isser is. But if it's a different place, then there's no Isser. According to Shmuel, it doesn't depend on the place, it depends on the time. You should not be reading from it during the time of the shear, doesn't matter where you are. And that actually fits with Shmuel's, because in his town they read from Ksuvim during Mincha time when there was no shear going on. Now there's the third version of this, which is that Shmuel really holds like Rav Nechemia, because there's brisa that says that the Mechokes between Rav Nechemia and the Tanakama. Rav Nechemia says the reason why you're not supposed to read from Sefer Ksuvim is not because it disrupts your attendance at the shir. It's because people should see that if you're not allowed to read from Sefer Ksuvim, you're certainly not allowed to read secular contracts and papers and things like that, which is a Gzeir D'Rabbanan, not to read them because of Shitrei Hadyetos. So we said not to read from Ksuvim, that way people will certainly not read from secular documents. Okay, this takes us to the Mishnah. The Mishnah introduces two halachas about saving Tashmisha Kedusha from a fire. The first one is that you're allowed to save the bag that the tefillin are in. You're allowed to save the container that the Sefer Torah is in, even if that container or bag also contains money, things which you're saving for yourself. So you're allowed to combine your own saving, something for your purposes, with something which you are saving l'chavod Hashem, and that's not a problem. You don't have to throw it out or take it out, even though it's muktzah, and you're saving something which is not kadosh at the same time. Now, second halacha is that where are you allowed to bring it to when you're saving it? So there's a machlokes here between the Tanakama and Ben Pseir, whether you're allowed to bring it into a mavoi mefulish, an open mavoi, or a mavoi she'ein mefulish, a closed mavoi. The Gemara will describe what the difference is between the two and what it's about, but that's not today. Now, the Gemara, after the Mishnah, goes into a totally different subject, which will eventually wind back around to this. So we're discussing the carbon Pesach, which is brought on Shabbos. The halacha is that a lot of the avodas of the carbon Pesach involve Chilul Shabbos, but you're allowed to do them anyway, even though Erev Pesach is a Shabbos, because it's required for the mitzvah which you are going to need, and it's Docha Shabbos. The question is, are you allowed to skin the animal? So, skinning the animal you need to do in order to be able to eat it, but you could wait until after Shabbos to do that. But you do need to take out the parts of the animal that go on the Mizbeach. So, according to the Rabbi Shmuel, son of Rav Yechanan ben Breika, you're allowed to skin the animal only as far as you need to in order to be able to easily take out the parts that have to go on the Mizbeach. That has to be done today on Shabbos. Can't do that after Shabbos is over. According to Chachamim, you're allowed to skin the whole thing. So the Gemara asks why. The Gemara says because it is for the sake of the kavod of Hashem. You want the carbon to be mechubad. We even have a hint of that from a pasuk in Mishlei, which says, "Kol pal Hashem l'maneu." You should do things for Hashem. Everything Hashem does is for you, so you should do things for Hashem. And it's not kavod to leave it like that, hanging half skinned. Why not? So machlokes of Rav Yosef and Rava. Rav Yosef says because it'll smell. If it's stuck in the skin, it'll rot faster and it'll smell. Rava says because it looks like an avela. It looks like a piece of roadkill lying there half-skinned. What's the difference between the two opinions? The difference is either if it's lying on a golden table, then it doesn't look disgusting like an avela, or if it's a fresh north wind blowing, that'll keep the temperature fair even if it still has the skin on. Okay, so this is the machlokes between Rabbi Shmuel ben Yechanan ben Breika and the Chachamim. Now the Gemara wants to know, what did they tell Rabbi Shmuel? What did they answer him? He said you're only allowed to skin as far as you need to in order to get the organs out. So they said to him, so they asked him, what's with the pasuk that says it shouldn't be in a disrespectful state? So he said, that's coming to tell you that you shouldn't just make a tiny slit and pull out the organs through that, because then you'll end up with hairs or fur stuck in the organs. You don't want that. You could have theoretically done that, so for that the pasuk says, no, you should do it respectfully. But to actually skin it further than you need to, skinning it further, that's for your sake, as well as for the sake of Hashem, and that's not mutter. It's only mutter to do things that are for the sake of Hashem. So Umar says, well, just because I get something out of it is not a problem. We can prove it to you from our Mishnah. You'll have to save the sefer together with the money that's in the bag. So you see, the fact that you get something out of it is not a problem as long as you're also doing it for Hashem. So Gemara says, how could you compare that? There, the only issue is muktzah. You're moving a muktzah object. It's only the Rabbanan. Over here, we're discussing skinning animals. Some malacha d'oraisa of hefshit on Shabbos. Who said that you're allowed to do that for that sake? So the Gemara says, aha, I hear. Okay, so what really happened was as follows. There were two machlokes in between Rabbi Yishmael ben Yoshua and Berka and the Chachamim. One was about muktzah, that the skin is muktzah, and therefore you're not allowed to move the animal. And the other is about, are you allowed to skin it altogether because of the malacha of skinning? So on that, they didn't say anything. But about the muktzah, they said we could prove that you can move the animal from one place to another. You don't have to worry about the muktzah that you're taking along with it. Just like you're allowed to save the sefer or the tefillin in the bag, you don't have to worry about the money that's being moved along with it. The Gemara is still in the middle of this discussion, but we'll hold it here and pick it up.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.